Welcome to iDrive SoCal. I am Tom Smith, and joining us today, is Christian Robinson. He is the Senior Director for State and Government Affairs for SEMA's PAC, SEMA's Political Action Committee. Did I get that correct?
You got it.
All right, awesome. Christian, thank you so much for joining us. Lots and lots of questions to cover. The topic, of course, is Leno's Law. And Leno's Law is also known as SB 712, creates a new smog check exemption for vehicles 35 years or older, promoting the preservation of older cars and promoting car collecting, essentially supporting car guys and gals throughout California. It's awesome. Got a ton of excitement from the community. But as the bill winds its way through Sacramento, like any bill, it's in danger of being killed entirely or amended beyond recognition. So thank you again for joining us for this conversation as we unpack all that. A couple other background points I want to put on this before we start is the bill was authored by Senator Shannon Grove. She represents California's 12th senatorial district, covering the middle of the state, starting at most of Edwards Air Force Base, going up through Bakersfield and all the way to Fresno Clovis, even a bit north of that. And then finally, sponsoring the bill is the car guy everyone knows and loves, with the exception of maybe David Letterman. He's been around long enough, you know, of an old rivalry between Leno and Letterman, but that's another whole story. But Jay Leno is obviously its namesake and also the sponsor. So, Matt, at this point, I'd like to hand it over to you. Make sure I got all that right. Kind of give us a summary of how it started and where we are today, and then we'll talk about where we're going to go.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think if you want to talk about where it started, you actually need to go back to 2004. Everyone, car enthusiasts in California are very aware of the current smog check exemption in the state. So if your vehicle is anything before 1976, you don't have to go get your vehicle smogged every 2 years like you would for a new vehicle. If you go back to 2004, when Arnold Schwarzenegger was governor, it used to be a rolling exemption, I believe 20 years. And they passed the bill through the legislature, which the governor signed, which took it to what we know now of anything before 76. And since then, there have been almost annual efforts to get that corrected. I've been at SEMA for over 10 years, and it is the number one issue that we hear about. You can get a legislative win in California or another state, and the number one comment we get is, all right, when are we going to get back to the rolling exemption in California? So fast forward to 2025, and you've got Senator Grove and Mr. Leno have teamed up to give it another go and create a new rolling exemption for collectors in the state. So you've had SB 712 introduced, commonly known as Leno's Law. And the intent of the bill is to create that rolling 35-year exemption for collector vehicles, which by law are defined as vehicles that you essentially use for cars and coffee, parades, car clubs, events, not your daily driver. You're not taking it to Walmart or Target at the grocery store. You're not taking your kids to soccer practice in it. It's your pride and joy. If it's raining, you don't take it out of the garage. So this is the best shot we've had in over 20 years at making real progress on this issue in California. Leno's Law has now passed through the Senate with pretty wide bipartisan support, and it is now in the Assembly, where it will essentially go through the same committee process that we went through in the Senate. So it'll go to a policy committee for a hearing, and then because there is a financial cost associated with it, it'll go to the Appropriations Committee before getting voted on there as well.
Okay. So I want to back up a bit. Mm-hmm. In 2004, Schwarzenegger, the supposed Republican governor, is the one that's responsible for killing the rolling 20. Is that accurate?
That's correct.
Okay. And I didn't move here myself until 2005. So I'm just trying to think that part through. But between then and now, what traction, if any, did SEMA have, or is it just kind of like bubbled up recently and kind of gained traction? Obviously, it gained traction with Leno and Governor, or not, Senator Shannon Grove.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's right.
But so what? I guess what changed between, we're talking about 20 years, essentially 21 years. What changed? What happened
Mm-hmm.
that finally pushed the needle to make something happen?
Yeah, great question. I'd say it's almost been a perfect storm. You are so taking a bigger picture. Democrats have a supermajority when it comes to government in California at the state level. Overwhelming control of the Senate, overwhelming control of the Assembly. They control the governor's mansion. So anything that they want to get done, they essentially can. And if you're on the wrong side, they can make life very difficult for you. There have been previous attempts at doing this that either didn't have the right lawmaker behind it, who maybe didn't have, the right party, or wasn't well liked by their colleagues. Perhaps the bill got referred to a committee where the chair.
You say not well liked by their colleagues. Are you talking about bipartisan?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Or perhaps the bill got sent to a committee where the chair of that committee just was a complete environmentalist. Any older vehicle that you're letting through was unacceptable, and in fact, they want all cars off the road. In a perfect world for them, we'd all be taking public transportation and bicycles everywhere we go.
Except them. They need to fly.
Except them, right? Yeah, they get to fly first class whenever they need to. Exactly. And do as I say. Yeah, do as I say, not as I do. So you're coming off of the 2024 election, where let's call it like it is. Democrats didn't have a good year.
Thank God.
Yeah.
Podcasts, I'm going to editorialize from time to time. Hope you don't mind.
Go for it. Yeah, they did not have a good year. And I think voters send them a very clear message that enough of the grandstanding. We want you to act in our best interests. We want you to make life a little more affordable, and really just what I think any reasonable person would consider common sense. So you had that factor.
So you're saying the common sense waterfall that happened on a national level is actually taking some impact in California, and we're seeing it by way of Leno's Law being able to move forward?
I think that's part of it. For sure. Absolutely. The other factor is in the Senate, you've got the chair of the Senate Transportation Committee, Senator Steve Cortese, who is a car guy and
a Democrat.
And a Democrat. He controls the agenda, but he's a car guy. He is a original co-author of the bill. So he's put his name on it. And he's been supportive of it. So you've had that factor too. He wants to see things change. He realizes that this system isn't working, and that the proposal is reasonable. Then you've got Senator Grove, who is a fighter. I mean, she's well liked by her colleagues, Republicans and Democrats alike. So she's got good relationships in Sacramento. And then of course there's Mr. Leno. He's a household name, everybody knows, and everyone knows that he's a car guy. So I think when you factor all those things together, and you pepper in the passion that enthusiasts and consumers have in the state for their older vehicles and the state's history, you've got that perfect storm kind of coming together at the right moment to move this ball forward.
I mean, I gotta say, on that note, on car guy passion, right? I Drive SoCal's newsletter is a big part of what we do. And just about 20,000 subscribers with a crazy engagement rate. Our open rate's like 44, between 44 and 45%.
That's amazing.
Like 15-ish%, whatever. To people that don't know marketing, that means absolutely nothing. But it's highly engaged. It's a very engaged audience, which is I'm proud of it, and I love to serve my audience. I love to serve you guys. Thank you for tuning in. But I will say that when people unsubscribe and leave a comment, which isn't very often, but when they unsubscribe and leave a comment, moved out of state is one that I see frequently. And it's the car guys. I mean, because also a lot of people reply. So I mean, I can kind of see my exchanges with people, and it's like, oh man, we lost another good one. This guy had a handful of cars. So I guess I share that because it's I mean, I'm hanging on by a thread personally in California. It's like the common sense has abandoned us seemingly a long time ago. So this is a big refresher, and thank you guys for spearheading it. I kind of took you off track there. If there's something else that you'd like to add, let's do that, because I'm going to kind of have a swerve a little bit here in the conversation.
Sure. No, go ahead.
Okay. So my next question is, so we have kind of like the perfect storm, like all the stars are lining up for this to happen, which is fantastic. Who else? Is it just SEMA, the Specialty Equipment Marketers Association, that's behind this, or are there other big groups behind this? And so who are they?
Yeah, absolutely. So you've got Senator Grove, who's the author, and then in California you have bill sponsors, which are people that put their name on it, essentially requested that the bill be introduced. So that's Jay Leno. And then we are there as a very vocal supporter of the bill, obviously. But then you've got groups like the Association of California Car Clubs that are supportive of the bill. The Lowrider Commission in Sacramento, very supportive of the bill. So really, you've got the automotive business community, and then you've got consumer groups throughout the state vocalizing their support for the bill. You even had the Los Angeles Business Federation, when it had its hearing in April, and the Transportation Committee stand up and voice their support for the bill as well.
What about specifically anybody in the new car arena, the New Car Dealers Association, California New Car Dealers Association, I believe is their exact acronym. Do you have a say in this one, or they kind of like
They have not taken a position on this.
Okay. They're gonna probably fight to save their ammunition for stuff that really directly impacts their business, right?
Probably.
Okay, interesting. And to clarify, you are personally, I mean, you handle DC and California, but you're based in DC, correct?
I'm based in DC. I oversee SEMA's state government affairs operations, so all 50 states. I've got two folks working with me. They split the country in half. One person handles the West Coast, one handles the East Coast. But that California, the West Coast person is based in our California headquarters, and they've got experience in the California legislature. So when I say West Coast, it's really California and then the other states. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So many things, Bill. All right, cool. So some other organizations are behind it. It started in the Senate, and the way that the process works is it starts in the Senate in a committee, comes out of the committee, which it did, but with amendments, and now it goes to and I'm asking a question to make sure that I'm getting this right. Comes out of committee, which it has with amendments, and now the full Senate votes on it, and then it goes over to the House. Is that the process?
Yeah, pretty much. Bill gets introduced. They say they make a committee assignment. So in this case, the bill went to the Senate Transportation Committee, which considers the policy involved. how the age of the vehicles, and should there be any additional restrictions. And the bill is considered a fiscal bill, because there is a financial implication to the state as well. So after it goes to a policy committee, it's got to go to a fiscal committee for consideration. In this case, appropriations, which is where the amendments were made. From there, it was set to the Senate floor, where roughly 2 weeks ago, it was voted out. So it's now over in the Assembly, awaiting committee assignment.
Meaning a good thing, not a negative.
And voted, that's a good thing. It passed. Yeah, it passed overwhelmingly. So now it's in the Assembly. We'll know the committee assignment soon. And it's still a fiscal bill. So once it goes through its policy committee, and it could be Assembly Transportation, it'll still go to Assembly Appropriations and then onto the floor.
So as it moves from Senate to Assembly, right?
Mm-hmm.
Guess we can use those interchangeably for second.
Yeah, you can. Mm-hmm. Yep.
But it came out of the Senate, and now it goes. So you say now it goes into a committee there?
Yeah, it goes to the Assembly, and essentially the process they're mirror images. So it'll have a policy committee hearing in the Assembly, and then go to the Assembly Appropriations Committee. So we're kind of at the halfway point.
Okay. Does it just have one policy committee when it goes to the House, or does it?
Sometimes bills get what's called a double referral, so it could go to two policy committees. In this case, we think it'll just end up going to the Assembly Transportation Committee.
Okay. Being a little bit of a cynic and jaded through decades of media, I'm looking at like, okay, where can this be derailed? Because I don't trust anybody in Sacramento. And it's like, okay, well, there's some off ramps with dead ends seemingly all around that we need to be careful and cognizant of. But it sounds like that's what you guys are doing by continuing to shepherd this thing through.
Mm-hmm. That's correct. Yep.
So it goes. You think it's going to go to the Transportation Committee. Once it gets out of the Transportation Committee, it still has to go to Appropriations regardless. Is that standard for all bills?
Yep. If it's a fiscal bill, yep. So if it spends money, it has to go through a money committee. So Appropriations.
So okay, this is getting ahead of myself. How is this spending money?
Yeah, good question.
They're going to be taking money from us on this.
Yep.
And therein lies another whole conversation of that part. So how is this spending money?
So yeah, great question. And I think that's a logical question to ask, right? Well, how is this spending money, right? If we're just not smogging cars. Well,
other than being in California, and you gotta, they're just about ready to tax breathing here.
Right. Yeah. So great question. So when you register the vehicle, it still has to go through DMV for that registration process. And because we are creating essentially a new exemption, if you will, DMV has to reconfigure their software system to accommodate it.
Money we're spending.
That's the money you're spending. And then
how many hundreds of millions are they going to blow on that?
Yeah, they've got to redo the software, and then they've got to train people to know how to use that software. So the one nice thing about the legislative process in California is when you get those hearings, a committee analysis is written where they explain what the bill is, what the current law is, what it changes, who's supporting it, what other bills like this have been considered in the past. But when it goes to that Appropriations Committee, they talk to the people that have that financial stake, and they will go to DMV and say, what's this going to cost you? We need to know for the legislative process. So DMV will come back and say, oh, it'll be high six figures because we got to redo the software. We got to train people.
And then do we have any kind of ground, we meaning car guys and SEMA and, the good guys in this equation, do we have any legal ground to come back and be like, all right, you guys are crazy. It's not going to cost that much. And push back in that regard? Or are we just, well, whatever you guys say, it's going to cost that much. I mean, you're California, you know everything.
Yeah. No, again, good question. There isn't really a legal process to question it. What you can try to do is, because the committee will hear it, like the appropriations committee staff will hear it before the hearing, and they will likely talk to the bill's author about it. So you're going to kind of get a good sense of what DMV is telling them, and you can call DMV and say, "Hey, how are you coming up with this number? Um, what are the pressure points?" And then you can try to
You meaning us, or you meaning
SEMA's legislative staff, or even Senator Grove's team. Yeah.
the
Uh,
experts in dealing with the nonsense?
yep. Or Senator Grove's staff, and say, what are the pressure points here, and how can we potentially retool the bill to alleviate some of that? So that's
In saying that, you're putting our negotiating gambit on the table by saying, well, what do we do to make that be less money? I mean, when really we're talking to the same folks who brought us the genius high-speed rail in California that spent how many hundreds of billions to create, what, 1,600 feet of track to nowhere?
right.
And, I mean, the concept of going to ask the DMV how much something is going to cost, it's like, shouldn't the question we'd be asking is, when does the Doge version of California, and specifically the DMV, take place?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yep. And then the other complicating factor is that the DMV is undergoing a massive software overhaul to begin with for the entire system. So they've got a backlog of work that they need to get done too. So it's government at work.
Okay. So then let's assume that it passes all that stuff, which we don't really know, and there's things, including our voices, that will need to help push this finish line, right? I don't even think that it's fair to say we're seeing the white flag in a race yet, right? But white flag.
No. Yeah, no, we're about halfway through. So yeah, no, we're not at the white flag yet. I wish we were, but we still have a couple of months to go.
And I mean, I'm a little concerned about, even if it does get through, it still needs Newsom's signature, right? And there's a little bit of concern in the back of my brain about Newsom just being vindictive because of the recent killing of the EV mandates and him trying to fight that. Has that been a factor that you guys have discussed, that you're willing to discuss right now?
I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves in the process. But they're getting the governor's signature, is, if it makes it that far, is certainly nothing we would ever take for granted. And there have been times where we've disagreed with positions he's taken or actions as he's taken, and believe it or not, there have been times where we have agreed with what he's done. And last year, for instance, he vetoed a bill that we were very opposed to, SB 961, which would have required new cars to come equipped with passive speed limiters to notify you when you're going over the speed limit. And at the end of the day, we were in communication with his team throughout the process, and they agreed with our argument, which was essentially that we have one body in this country that sets standards like that for cars. It's NHTSA, and they set it for all 50 states. And so he vetoed that bill. So we're
strong lobbyists on the same side as you guys, as the same side as Sanity.
Yeah.
That I'm sure we're chirping in his ear, perhaps loudly. And I'm sorry to cut you off, but was there something else? Because I was about to take.
No, absolutely no. Go ahead.
Cool. So okay, so that's where we're going, and as we wrap this up in a little bit here, I want to talk about what we can do, what iDrive SoCal can do, what our audience can do to help make sure this thing goes across the finish line. But then the other element that I mentioned in the beginning of this was, making sure that it gets across the finish line in a recognizable form. So let's talk a little bit about these amendments that have already taken place. We have the requirement for vehicles to have collector car insurance. We have the for vehicles to display historical license plates. And then, of course, the limitation the implementation of January 1st, 2027. So just taking those first two first, how hard, I mean, I know some cars, going to a lot of car shows, you see, especially the horseless carriages, which are the really old ones, right?
Yeah.
Like 19 teens.
Uh-huh.
And you see a lot of those with historical plates. But from my understanding, a car can have historical plates, but not actually display a historical car verbiage on the plate. So some cars that we see driving around have historical plates, but we don't know that because the plate itself doesn't say it. Correct?
Yeah, so there are a variety of plates in California. The one that this would require it would be essentially a white plate. So it's already in existence, a white plate that says historical vehicle on it, and then has a number.
Okay, so it is that particular plate that we're talking about. Because from what I've understood, just talking to other car guys that have older vehicles, they have kind of these requirements in place, but looking at their car, you wouldn't know it. So, but what you're saying is it will, as the bill currently stands, or this current amendment, is that it will have those plates, the vehicles that would be covered under Leno's law would have those plates that say historical vehicle on them.
Yes. Yeah, you would have to have those plates. Yep.
Okay. So question one, how hard is that to get now? How hard is the DMV going to make that to get by the time this thing is implemented?
Yeah. It is, my understanding, it is not hard to get that kind of plate now. The state has them readily available in stock. It essentially mirrors the usage requirements that were kind of already in place. If you look at how the bill was originally drafted, and then there's less cost associated with it. And I don't know the numbers off the top of my head. I think you're only paying $2 a year in the taxes, as opposed to a different rate. So those plates are not hard to get. Yeah.
So, but DMV may have enough time to trip us.
Well, and I think this was part of the calculation because the amendments were taken by the Appropriations Committee. So I think they were looking for ways to minimize the system changes that DMV would have to go through. So taking an existing plate that they already are prepared to issue, and requiring these vehicles to have them, what is a way of reducing those costs. And then, similarly, not to jump ahead, but with the implementation, DMV has got a backlog of work on their plate for this modernization process. So if you move it out 1 year, and the idea is that you would reduce that cost pressure that they're facing as part of that process.
So they're telling us that if you give us more time, it'll actually cost you less.
If you look at the governor's original budget for the year, because the governor, he's required every year to put out a budget in January, and then comes back in May once they've looked at the tax receipts that they have, and they will revise it. It's called the May revise. They made it very clear. They're like, let's not burden DMV. So when you talk about potentially having to get the governor's signature, moving that implementation date out, is designed a bit to play ball and make sure that they can't implement it this year. The two backlog, it's just an automatic veto.
So then the next question is, I know the answer to this one, and that's the collector vehicle insurance is not that difficult to get. But I guess what I don't know is between those two, the plates as well as collector vehicle insurance, is how much is that going to limit our usage of the vehicles in question? Whether that be currently now or what they might be able to kind of, pull out from under the rug on us down the line.
Yeah. So the historical, if you were to go get collector's insurance, the policy maker, whether it's somebody like Haggerty or um, Chubb, would certainly put usage requirements in place, similar to what is already in law and what is required with the historical vehicle plates, and what the bill, when it was originally written, prescribed. Right? It's not a daily driver. You're taking this to events, you're taking it on a weekend cruise, but you're not taking it to soccer practice with the kids. Um, they depends on the policy really. Like there could be a mileage with the insurance, a mileage restriction in place. My understanding is that you can get that mileage restriction to go higher if you're willing to pay more. But generally you're going to pay less than what you would for a regular insurance. The problem that we see with it is that oftentimes those collector insurance policies require the vehicle to be stored in a garage. But California, most of the states got great weather. A lot of people don't have garages, so you're basically
With other stuff.
right. So yeah, yeah, exactly. So that to us is the downside of having that collector's policy. And if we're talking about these vehicles that are, from the 80s and 90s, it's a whole new generation of collectors that view those cars as their holy grails. They're the cars that they saw driving around when they were a kid, or they saw on TV and movies. And those younger people aren't necessarily going to have the money to have the house with the garage. So, we were disappointed that the committee added those amendments on when they did. I know Senator Grove and some of the other bipartisan co-authors are committed to working, and now that it's in the assembly, to get some of it removed so it's closer to what the original bill was. But that'll be part of the process as it works its way through.
I mean, already having talks with car guys at shows about this, and I mean, a lot of these guys, as I just mentioned, they have a garage full of tools and they're working on cars themselves. We so what somebody pointed out to me is how easy it is for guys like us working on cars like that to simply disconnect the odometer. Then you have the fact like, well, okay, that's clever. You disconnect the odometer, so you get to use the vehicle more. But then what really happened? What's that going to do to what's that going to have a market value implications?
Yeah.
Has that been a conversation that has been had by you guys or lawmakers, or has anyone gotten to that point yet?
No, we have no. We have not had that discussion.
Devious, but
Yeah, it is. Yeah. No, in it, it's one of those things where people do it and they do things that they shouldn't do. But yeah, we're not disconnecting odometers. We're not touching that one at the moment.
All right. Okay. So I think that covers all of my high level questions. I mean, I could make more cynical comments about all kinds of stuff regarding Sacramento. But is there anything before we kind of, address what the audience can do, what we can do at iDrive SoCal to kind of help push this thing along? Is there anything else that we missed that you think is relevant to cover right now, that you want to cover right now?
No, I would just stress that, it's when it comes to the legislative process, it's a marathon, not a sprint. And, we may not like, the language that's currently in the bill. But that doesn't mean that all is lost, right? There will almost certainly be amendments taken as this goes through its next two committees. Knock on wood that it goes through its next two committees. So I just, when we talk about how people can help as we transition to that, I would just tell everyone, be patient, and there may be a speed bump along the way, but we're still moving the ball forward.
Do you guys have any whiz bang software where it's like a link to it where I could share it and and my audience could be like, add their name real quick. Their assembly person and senator pops up, and they can, with a few keystrokes, blast off an email in support of the bill. Do you have that?
Yeah, it's very easy. www.freemyride.org.
I love it.
And it's a really easy form to fill out. You give your name and address. It automatically pairs you with who your local lawmakers are, and it's one click to send a letter. And we've got an FAQ on there as well. It's probably similar to the one you received that kind of explains the process and the amendments and what the path is moving forward.
Okay. And have you had feedback? Have you been using this process for a long time? Had feedback from lawmakers about it?
We do, yeah.
Because I've heard some lawmakers that like want to continue to be oblivious. They're like, oh yeah, or not the lawmaker, but the staff. Like, we've gotten a lot of those emails. We're thinking that they're from bots, so we just moved them all to spam and we're ignoring them.
Cool. Yeah. It's interesting. In California, 9 times out of 10, if you send an email to your lawmaker, you get a automatically generated response. It's like, oh, thanks for your feedback. Go to our website and send it there. Well, and people are like, oh, these letters aren't working. They want me to go to the website. Well, here's the secret. Those emails are getting through. And someone is reading them. You do get the automated response, but it's still counted on there and they're still seeing them. You may not think so based on the message you're getting, but they still are. Okay. We were in Sacramento last week. We do an annual SEMA California rally where we bring our members to Sacramento to lobby for the industry. We did it last week. We had about 40 of our members there. And this was the number one issue. And every office we went to was familiar with the bill and had been, commented on the letters that they were receiving. So it's working. Voices are being heard.
And you're referring to the same process that we just discussed, sharemyride.org. That's
Yep, exactly. Free my ride. Yeah, freemyride.org. Yeah.
Freemyride.org. And then what is your suggestion to those who go and do the freemyride.org? Automatically send the notes to their assembly person and senator, and then when they get those automatic replies back that say, oh, go to our website and do this. I mean, if they're feeling super diligent, should they go ahead and do that? Or is it just kind of like at that point, you've done?
Yeah. If they're feeling super diligent, go ahead and do it. But do know that when you get that, don't be discouraged because that letter has gotten through. There is a human on the other end that has read it and logged it. And even if you don't fill out the form, you will likely still get a real response back eventually.
Okay. I have to say, a few weeks back, your colleague Matt Daigle and I had a conversation about the EV mandate being killed, and then Newsom and Bonta here in California wanting to try and run for higher office, both of them, in order to grab the crazy vote and try to jam EV mandates at, of course, California taxpayer expense down the throat of everybody else that doesn't want them. But with that being said, Matt and I discussed the SEMA rally. Mm-hmm. You guys had 40 people. Just with my newsletter alone, 20,000 people, car guys and girls, Southern California specific. If you guys opened it up, a rally like that, if you opened something up for a reason for a policy pause that made sense, my guess, and I'm might be getting over my skis a little bit on this, but my guess is that if you open that up to beyond just SEMA members, by my channel alone, I would think we could get a few hundred people to go for whatever purpose. I mean, I think I mentioned this to Matt. I'm not sure if it was during a recording or not, which we're still recording this. I'm gonna put it out there. I don't care. But I asked my audience. I did a poll. Who would be willing to go for a rally to Sacramento on gas policy and prices. And I think the overwhelming response was like 78% 8% or something of the respondents were for it. But so what for what it's worth, there's SEMA is not alone, and not alone in Southern California specifically, not alone with the iDrive SoCal audience, and with me. So perhaps share that around the water cooler or coffee pot when you have the opportunity.
Well, absolutely, and that's very generous of you. There will be other opportunities. I will say that. Like for instance, when Leno's Law has that hearing in likely Assembly Transportation, they take public testimony. So anybody can go and have their voice heard. And it's very simple. It is, and it's purely a numbers game. It's called doing a Me Too testimony. So when they open it to members of the public, you'll see in the hearing room, people will line up in the aisle and they step up and they say, Christian Robinson, Diamond Bar, California, in support of Leno's Law. You move on to the next person. And if you get, dozens of people, 50 people, 100 people, all standing there singing from the same sheet of music and making their voice heard, it really does make a difference. So there will be an opportunity in July, likely early to mid-July, when the bill has its next hearing, to come out to Sacramento and make your voice heard on this issue.
That's just a couple of weeks away.
It is, yeah. And
that's a short runway for a big rally.
I know. It can be tricky. It can be tricky, and I wish we controlled the calendar and had more time to plan that sort of thing. But unfortunately, we don't. But for those in the area that are willing to make the drive, it's a great opportunity to really have an impact.
Are they placing that time period, the beginning of July? I mean, that's right at the time period, like everybody's on summer vacation.
I know.
Out of state, out of town, whatever. I mean, are they even going to have a quorum, enough lawmakers to do business?
Yeah, it's interesting. So California,
don't tell me they're going to zoom in for this.
No, they don't. They really don't do that anymore. You got to be there in person. So California is interesting. They have, when it comes to the legislative process, a set calendar. So if you have a bill, you know what deadlines and dates you've got to make to keep going. So, you had to get out of the Senate by, I think it was roughly earlier this month, 2 weeks ago. And now you've got to get out of policy committees in the Assembly by July 18th. So they will have one or two hearings before that, where they will hear on a lot of bills, including Leno's Law. So it's they'll be there, and then they do take that summer break. They go on recess for a couple of weeks, and then come back for the remainder of the session.
Last question before I let you go. You're a betting man. It's a two-part question. You're a betting man. What are the odds it passes? What are the odds it passes in recognizable form?
Oh, well, it's tough because I'm not a betting man. But I would say,
put you on the spot.
I would say if you got a coin, let's flip it. And I've been saying that all along, and so far it's landed on the right side.
Okay.
So, but it's because of the hard work that Senator Grove is putting in, Mr. Leno, our team here at SEMA, and Californians that are making their voices heard. Okay. So as long as we keep fighting, I think we've got good odds at moving forward.
Well, I'm going to promote the heck out of this freemyride.org as well as our talk here. So hopefully we'll drum up all the support that we possibly can on our end. But until next time, I say thank you very much to Christian Robinson, Senior Director for State and Government Affairs for SEMA PAC, Political Action Committee. For iDrive SoCal, I am Tom Smith, and very slowly I'm getting to this part where we're on a two-shot here. I can say, talk to you again real soon. Thanks again.
Thanks, Tom. Appreciate it.